time for the SeaBees. And the truth is, I have no words, okay? Watching everything happen over the last few months has really, really impressed me. Everything that everybody has done. And the truth is, about a week ago, I decided I was not going to speak tonight. I have stood up here in front of you all and said thank you many times. And really, from the bottom of my heart, that's all I'm going to say tonight is a thank you. And to mention that what makes Diego Garcia is the interlinked and the spider webs of personal relationships that have brought this island together. And so for that, I'm going to call up Viptron's own CSO, Commander Jesse Packard, who has a little more of a background to this island than I do. So my uncle was here way back in the 70s. Please come up, Jesse. Jesse's dad has way more personal connection, so Jesse's going to give a little bit of a more personal speech tonight. And so Jesse, thank you for making sure I don't have to speak again for a little bit. But share some of your experiences with you and your dad and everything that came about here.
Thank you so much, Skipper. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here tonight, and Skipper, thank you so much for yielding your time. Celebrating the SeaBees is deeply important to me. Even though I'm a SWO, and for reasons that I won't get into, the SeaBee community told me that even though I was an engineer, I wasn't eligible. But there's a unique family history with the SeaBees and with Diego Garcia. And that's kind of what I want to talk to everyone about tonight. SeaBees are an almost legendary organization in the United States military. Their exploits are numerous. There are many tales that can be told, many that have been, some here tonight already. From World War II to Korea, Vietnam, conflicts, deployments, and exercises. Not all of those stories have the recognition that some others do. And the stories that I'm going to tell you tonight don't share that recognition either, but they were deeply important to me and contributed greatly not only to me becoming a member of the United States Navy, but also coming to this island. It wouldn't be much of an exaggeration to say that I knew where Diego Garcia was before I knew much of my U.S. geography. Growing up, pictures from the building of this island would be projected old school projector style onto the walls in my living room. Every slide had a story. And this family ritual would be repeated several times in my youth. The building of Diego Garcia, and there's a couple of these stories that I'm going to share with you tonight. In March 1971, the USS Vernon County, with the main body of Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 40, embarked and landed here on Diego Garcia. One of the SeaBees that was on board was a young equipment operator, 3rd class, William Packard, my father. Native of Camden, Maine, grew up around the construction industry and equipment, experienced in both, made him a natural fit for the SeaBees. And while he may have been a great SeaBee, I can tell you he wasn't a great sailor. After 7 days on the Vernon County, when they finally got the brow across on the beach, and it was his turn to walk ashore, in lieu of the standard permission to go ashore from the officer of the deck, he said, "I will die on this island before I get back on this ship." So SeaBees do have a way of setting the tone. So while the LST did bring a lot of the equipment that they were going to need, most of the equipment came by merchant ship. And when those ships would come into the lagoon, there was always an equipment operator, a mechanic, and a group of stevedores from ACB2 that would go out to the ship. And we all know what the temperatures are like here in Diego Garcia, and being in the hold of a rusty old merchant ship in the lagoon in the heat, not a pleasant environment. So my dad is in there waiting for the first piece of equipment to get ready for him to move. And he's watching the stevedores take every piece of dunnage off of the equipment. And they are all sweaty. And he watches Mechanic goes and does his thing, get it prepped, turns it over to my dad. My dad moves it over to the hatch where they can lift it out, put it onto a mic boat, bring it ashore. They do this a couple of times. My dad goes to the stevedores, the ACB2 guys, and says, "Do you guys have to take off every piece of dunnage?" Typical Navy fashion, the answer was, "It's the way we've always done it." So he said to him, "Well, what about on this next one? If I just show you a couple of key pieces that you need to remove, I'll just drive over the rest." I said, "We'll give it a shot." After that, EO3 Packard was the equipment operator that was to be on every merchant ship bringing equipment to Diego Garcia because he saved those guys so much work. After they got all the equipment ashore, I'll skip the stories on dredging the lagoon and the water side to scoop up the coral and make the aggregate. We don't talk about that anymore. But because he had experience running equipment in his civilian life, he got picked to run a grader. And his friend that he had worked with briefly on the island, Terry Pruitt, they both got picked. Terry Pruitt didn't have any grader experience, but he did have time running a dozer, and he picked it up pretty quick. And one of the unique things about the original airstrip was that it wasn't built in sections. It was built the entire length from one side to the other in an almost continuous process. So as they got all the aggregate, got it crushed, got it onto the field, my dad and Terry would run graders, getting it to its final grade. And what they figured out, because they were going the whole length of the runway, is that they put the graders nose to nose, and while one was cutting, the other was backing up, and they just go back and forth across the width of the runway. They were able to get a lot done in a much shorter period of time. Once they got so they were appreciated for that. But because the runway was constructed from side to side and its unique process, they allowed several things to happen simultaneously. They'd grade the runway, and then they would come along with a separate machine that would bring it to finished grade. Then they'd spread concrete on top of the finished grade, basically bring out with a massive rototiller to mix the concrete, the aggregate, and the sand, and a metered amount of water to make cement in the soil. And then that was packed, sprayed with asphalt, and the whole process occurred continuously. And that is one of the reasons that they were able to complete the runway in just over 3 months, and 3 weeks ahead of schedule. The important thing about this, for the SeaBees that were on the island, is they were the only unit outside of Vietnam that was allowed R&R in Thailand. But in order to get that R&R, they had to fly. To fly, you need an airstrip, so they were exceptionally motivated. And they were very happy to see the first C-130 land on the island. And I've heard the SeaBees like to party. So once when that C-130 landed, it was time for a party. And the SeaBees know how to do it right. And there are pictures from the mid-deployment party after that C-130 landed, where there's a 5-ton loader bucket at the beginning of the line for the food for the party, and it is filled with ice and Budweiser. Oh, yeah. Get the beer first, food will come later. Oops, sorry, here pages are sticking together here on my notes. Speaking of parties, and this is something that didn't occur once, but occurred multiple times in NMCB 40's time on the island. And it's been alluded to already that the ability of the SeaBees to strategically transfer an equipment to an alternate location is absolutely unmatched. I've heard it said that if you win a fight with the SeaBees, you still lose because you'll find your Humvee up on blocks and the tire's gone. And I think that's fairly accurate. So the supply boats that would come in and bring the equipment, they also brought all the sustainment. And when the food would come in, there'd be a shopkeeper on the ship, shopkeeper on the shore, and the LCMs would run in between. So they'd load a pallet of beer onto the Mike boat. SK on the ship, 1 pallet of beer. Mike boat would get about halfway back to the beach. And the SeaBees would strip the top row of beer off that pallet, stuff it under the coxswain station. Same thing with steaks or whatever else would happen to be good. And then when they got ashore, the shopkeeper ashore, 1 pallet of steaks, 1 pallet of beer. And nobody ever asked any questions. Everybody enjoyed, and it was a good time. So those are the stories that I wanted to share about the island of Diego Garcia and why I'm here, really. Because I grew up with these stories and many others. And it is an honor to be here tonight. And Captain Kaheen, thank you again for yielding your time to me. It means a lot to me, it means a lot to my dad. Thank you all very much.